today we're just going to be going over two versions of headstand and two versions of shoulder stand that you'll be practicing over the next few days. I'm planning on publishing this putting this up on Thursday. Tomorrow we're going to do the immunity sequence, and then next week and the following week we'll be doing level 2 sequences where shoulder stand and headstand are generally in every single class. So this is just a quick tutorial. A lot of this you've heard in classes before. So I'm taking a yoga mat and I'm folding it over itself once and then twice to make a 4-layered sticky mat like this. The first version of Sirsasana headstand I'm going to show is at the wall. So I'm going to take my yoga mat, 4-layered, put it long side all the way up to the wall, and then I interlace my fingers. Now the spacing from the fingers to the wall is dependent on the size of your butt. So if you're a very petite person, your knuckles will go right up to the wall. For me, my knuckles are actually going to go about an inch away from the wall. Not much. They shouldn't be this far away, pretty much for anybody, because you would be assuming basically that your butt is like that big, right? And so for most of us, some people, very small frame will be the knuckles right up to the wall. For me, I'm just going to go a little bit away from the wall. And you remember the points of shoulder stand, or rather headstand, that you're pressing this outer wrist down. I'm picking up my shoulder blades and pulling my shoulder blades up my back, up as in, I'm calling up right now toward the ceiling, and that'll be more obvious when I'm actually in the pose. Then I place the head, I walk in, I extend up, extend the legs up, and it's fine to just continue with your feet on the wall. You don't actually have to balance when you're this spacing away from the wall, but if you can balance, then do so. It's fine to just have the heels to the wall. I keep my legs active, I keep my base active. So my base, the most important part of the pose, I press the outer wrist down and lift the shoulder blades up. I turn the biceps forward and extend from the outer wrist to the elbow, like I'm pushing my outer elbow and inner elbows down to the floor. Okay, so that's your base with your legs. You keep the knees straight, you turn the thighs in and extend up through the heels and the ball mounds of the feet, and you extend the tailbone up. So I'll talk a lot about those different alignment cues in class when we're going through it, but this is just the shape and the setup of using the wall. Many of you are familiar with this. Another option, you would still be using the wall for the second option, but another option, and this is less commonly taught because it's a little tricky in a class to have this many corners, is if you have a corner that doesn't have any stuff on your wall, you can basically do the same pose in a corner. It's quite nice because you use the two walls to align your hips and your shoulders, and it's pretty useful. So essentially, I'm going to put my base as close to this corner as possible. And I just want to add something. When I was here doing the pose this way, this wall doesn't have a baseboard. It doesn't have any of trim like on this wall. So if you have trim, you might bring your knuckles all the way up to the trim because that could accommodate that little inch or couple, like half inch of space that you need there. So for this now, I bring my knuckles, it's close into here. Same kind of deal. Make sure my elbows are under my shoulders. I place my head, walk my feet in, and up I go. This tends to be in Light on Yoga, this is the first version of headstand that's taught. After you learn just pressing into your base, the tendency or what's recommended is that as you begin and first start to extend the legs up toward the ceiling, that you do it at a corner. So if you have a corner at your house, this is really nice. This is a great setup. I can feel if my hips are turning, I can feel if my shoulders are uneven because the two walls at a 90-degree angle give me a good feedback. So the corner is really, really nice. And if you're practicing in a particular room and you know you're going to be doing this, you can clear stuff out of the way to have a corner. And then the last version, those are two versions of headstand at the wall, and now I'll just show the classic restorative kind of version of headstand. It's important for this one to have a sticky mat on the ground. If you have a carpeted floor, that might not be necessary because the chairs won't slip, but I'm going to use two dining room chairs. Place a sticky mat flush to the wall. And I just grabbed two normal dining room chairs here. I'll just keep the blankets on and I'll show with how to set the blankets up. So the most important part of chairs here is that you have two of the same chair. So I've got folding chairs that I could use, but you might not have two of the same folding chair lying around, but typically you have two of the same armless dining room chairs. That's more common, I would estimate. So I put these chairs flush to the wall. So there's no space at all between the chair here and the wall. And then I'm going to take my sticky, or my blanket. I place a blanket on each seat of the chair. Get the chairs close to the wall. Folded blanket close to the chair, or close to the edge of the chair. And I want enough space here for my head, and I basically just want just enough space for my head to clear this gap. Like my ears should get through, but I don't want these so far apart that it's barely supporting my outer shoulders. I want these close enough together to where it solidly presses the whole joint of the shoulder. Now I've got two blankets here, one on each. If you go in and you feel that there's pain on your shoulder joint, like the hardness of your chair is pressing unpleasant way into your shoulder joint, you would just add more blankets or more towels, more padding. But whatever you do, make sure that it's the same chairs and you have the same amount of padding on each chair. Even if one shoulder for some reason pains more than the other, as long as everything's folded and symmetric, if one shoulder needs a little bit more padding, add that same padding to the other shoulder. So then to go in, I'm going to place my head. I can tell my chairs need to be a little farther apart. So I place my head, and when I place my head, I want to get my shoulders here as close to this wall as possible. So I'm going to place my head through. Then I'm going to walk my shoulders as close to that wall as possible. You can see how I'm placing my hands. I'm holding underneath my blanket to just hold the edge of the seat of the chair. So I've got my shoulders close to the wall. I can feel my upper back on the wall. And then extend the legs up. If it challenges you in any of these headstands to extend the legs from the floor, you could feasibly put your feet on a chair so that you're like kind of starting from right here on a chair and then just extend the legs up from an additional chair. So here I am, I'm in the pose. At first you would stay like this for a moment or two. It's quite pleasant, but I don't have to do much in my shoulders. I want to see that I'm not arching forward and throwing my chest forward. I just keep my buttocks and my buttock and my back to the wall. So, and then a nice refinement that often happens is you can take your hands and just rest your hands across the chair like this. After a while, you would switch the cross of the arms. Okay, so this is Sirsasana on two chairs. Now I keep my legs active, I keep my buttock active, and keep extending up to the heels. So my legs aren't dead, they don't bend, they don't just flop. I keep the knees straight, legs together, turn the thighs in, extend the butt up. I do have to keep extending the shoulders up as well, but the chair helps that action a lot. It's kind of doing the shoulder blade depression for you, if you will. And then to come out, you would take your hands to the seats of the chair, one leg down at a time. This is also important that when you come down, you bend the knees, place the feet on the floor, and you just rest the head at first. You don't want to pop straight up to standing. You can just kneel here comfortably, rest your head on your hands. And then after a moment or two, it's really nice here to come up, stand with the feet hips width, and rest the head in the hole again for a forward fold. So that's an option. Okay, so here we are at Sarvangasana, all limbs pose. We usually call it shoulder stand. I'm going to show the classical setup for shoulder stand first. So the what we call freestanding shoulder stand first, and then I'll show the chair version after that. So it's great. We're going to use the chair. You don't have to use the chair for halasana, plow pose, but I will today. I've got one of my chairs here for halasana. Now, usually for shoulder stands, you need a lot of blankets, like 3 to 4, maybe even 5 blankets. And realistically, not everybody has 5 blankets, but what you probably have is a lot of linens and a lot of towels and things like that. So I've got 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got like 6 different miscellaneous beach towels here, and I've attempted to fold all of them like this, so they make somewhat of a rectangle, and I have the smooth folded edge of every single towel placed on top of each other to form a little cliff. And you want to make sure that the edge of these supports is very slightly angled this way, so that when you lie back over it, your body weight will drag them on top of each other. It's very nice to sit in a chair to set all these up because you can see what you're doing and you're not straining and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to use a belt as well. Make a loop in the belt. If you don't have a belt, that's fine. You don't actually need the belt. It's just nice. Makes holding the pose for longer periods of time, which we do in the restorative and the immune system sequences, more easy to do. So I make a loop in the belt that's going to hold my arms about shoulder distance. And then I fold the sticky mat over partway. I want a little bit of space here that doesn't have any sticky mat on it so that my shoulders can move, but my elbows will effectively stick here. And then, this bolster is optional. You could also use blocks here, but it's a really nice refinement. You could use a couch cushion here if you like, something like that, so that when you sit down on your bolster, it makes rolling over into plow pose a little bit easier, and it gives you some padding for when you're coming out. So, I lie back here. Want to have that about inch and a half of space here, and most of this should be a review for many of you, but just wanted to show you that you could do it with towels. And you move the chair 1 arm's length away, so I extend an arm, push the chair away. I have my belt in hand ready. I put the belt in my elbow joint, so I know where it is. I get my shoulders rolled underneath me, and I take a little bit of a slide this way before I kick my legs up. That pulls my shoulders underneath me more. Kick the legs up to halasana. Put the belt on around my elbows. The belt should go around the upper arms like this. The belt should not go around the forearms, because if it's around the forearms, your elbows can still widen out. The whole point is that it prevents your elbows from widening out, so it has to be around the upper arms. Then I interlace my fingers, press my arms down, walk onto the tops of my shoulders, get my shoulders underneath me, straighten my knees and lift my thighs. Not that I'm coming up all the way into the pose yet, I'm just extending my legs, lifting my thighs. Then I place my hands on my back near my shoulder blades, as close down the back as I can get them. So the pose will be easier if you can get your hands low down close to your shoulders. Okay, then 1 leg at a time, you would extend the legs up. It's actually really nice with the blanket, or with the towels. I haven't done this before, so it's very doable. I extend my legs, and we can talk more about over live videos what you need to be doing here, but essentially the legs are straight, tailbone extends up, feet extend up, and you keep pressing the elbows down and push this part of your back in. So you don't want to sag this part of your back out. You move that in, and your hands help with that. You can constantly adjust. I mean, I shouldn't say constantly, but every so often in the pose, every 30 seconds or minute, you can walk your hands a little lower. Lower as in closer to your shoulder blades. Okay, so then you'd be there for a period of time. To come out, you would drop down to Halasana. This is the moment where you take your belt out, you'd extend your arms overhead, roll out, okay? And then typically it's fine to just rest here. So your butt down. I mean, sometimes we teach that you gotta go this way and get your back off. This is fine to do too. But you don't want to come out of an inversion and immediately move on to the next thing. So you take a moment here. I wasn't in there for very long, so I'm going to move on. But if you're there for several minutes, you just take a rest for a while and then roll out. So I'm going to move my freestanding shoulder stand stuff out of the way and show the chair version. So for the chair version, and once again, use a dining room chair. I have a 4-layered sticky mat on the chair, all the way up to the edge of the chair. I'm going to place one blanket on that chair. I have a bolster on the ground, and just as a comfort, I'm going to put a blanket over the top of the chair. This sticky mat under here is not necessary, I just had it there from the last demo, so to avoid any confusion, we'll just get that out of there. So the spacing between this support and this support depends on the height of your body. You do want some support under your buttocks just so that there's something soft there to support you. But at the same time, if it's too much support and you're a smaller person, then your shoulders won't make it down to here. I've been taught that it's actually fine to have your head, if your shoulders are well supported on this, it's fine to have your head hanging and not on the ground. I find it's nicer to have the head completely down, but just know that if you have a taller chair where that's padded and then you have to use a bolster plus a blanket here and your head just feels like it's hanging a little bit off the ground, that's okay. So I'm gonna move this a little bit away from that wall. The classic setup is that you sit to the side, you turn to the side and kick your legs over the chair. This chair back is pretty tall, but it'll be okay. So I kick my legs over the back of the chair, I hold the back of the chair, and when I lie back, I keep my chest lifting. And you can see right now that this chair is hitting me at my middle back. I really want it to be at my lower back, kind of my sacrum supporting. So I'm gonna kind of worm my way down, slide over the chair, I get my shoulders down. And now this chair, many times we have people thread the arms through the front bars to hold the back bars, but this chair is too narrow for me to do that. It brings my arms way too close together. So if your chair is like that, you would just simply hold on to either the seat, or you can try to hold like right here, I've got something under the seat, but you want to be holding on with something with your arms. You don't, I guess it could be fine to just have your arms hanging, but it's going to be a better opening of the chest, and we're going to get more of the restorative quality of expanding the chest and the rib cage by having some support for the arms. So when you place your arms, generally speaking, you want your biceps turning up. So if I take some support, like, trying to think about it, if I hold like this, my biceps and my elbows extend out and my biceps turn toward each other. So it's better to hold like this with your palm up. Even if you're going through the front legs of the chair and holding the back leg, you want your bicep up. Even if your arm is turning out to the side, that's great. So you hold like this, and you'll find that that helps expand the chest. The upper arm turns, the chest can expand more. Here you extend the tailbone up. The butt stays on the support, but it doesn't just hang. You keep extending the tailbone toward the feet. You keep the knees straight, turn the thighs in. Now you want to have this support under the shoulders, a little bit under the neck, but mainly just under the shoulders. You would not want like this. That's a little bit too much support for the neck. You also would have to feel that if it's like this, and you feel like you're kind of not really supported under your shoulders, like right now I feel like I'm just kind of hanging and my shoulders aren't really supported much, then it's fine to just grab your support, your blankets, whatever you've got there, and pull it in a little closer. Now coming out is, the best way to come out is to release your arms and hold the chair. So you would, if you have your arms through the front legs to hold the back legs, you would take them out, and then you hold the chair, you bend up your knees, and you keep the chair in place. Hopefully you keep the bolster in place, and you just kind of slide down. You don't want to release the chair because the chair could extend and like kind of shoot out from under you. So you just lower yourself down slowly, you rest your arms, you rest your legs. Again, you would rest for several moments, but then once you've rested, you turn to your side and you come up.